Let's get dark with it.
I don't know.
Let's go pessimistic. We have this
boy.
story from Harvard.edu. Harvard Youth Poll finds young Americans are worried about democracy and even fearful of civil war. Oh, I love to say it. They say more than half of young Americans feel democracy in the country is under threat, and over a third think they may see a second U.S. civil war within their lifetimes, according to the 42nd Harvard Youth Poll released by Harvard Kennedy School's Institute of Politics. The poll also found approval for President Biden has plummeted, and a majority of respondents are unhappy with how the president and Congress are doing their jobs. I think it's funny that you're asking young people. It's like, how do you feel about Congress? And they're like, well, I've realized they're bad. And it's like, it's because you're getting older and you're watching them. But older people have been watching them for a long time, knowing they're bad. I love that Joe Biden's approval rating is tanking, but I knew who Joe Biden was back during Occupy Wall Street 10 years ago. All these young people are like, kind of feel like I was lied to about Joe Biden. But we've got this other one that wraps along with it. Hedge fund founder Ray Dalio predicts there is a 30% chance of U.S. civil war in the next 10 years because of emotional political polarization. Believes the Constitution may save the nation. Now, I think the issue is there's two realities. And I think, most people we talk to agree. Certainly some people say, no, it's not true. But I think if you talk to... You talk to some of these Democrats, they'll tell you Russiagate still happened. Like, even though we know, and we've known for years, Trump did not collude with Russia, they still believe it. Things like that. If you have people who, we had an article from Salon the other day, that said the second civil war may come, like, which side are you on? Choose your side now. And they said our multiracial democracy is anathema to the Republican Party or like the Republican view. And I'm like, that's insane. Republicans are not that. That is not what they are. But if you have people who live in that world, then yeah, I agree we're heading in that direction. And it's not just my opinion. It's the opinion of a guy a hedge fund founder whose job is literally to make predictions about where these markets are going to go. And he thinks there's a good chance it could happen.
Now, we should right away say, okay, what do we mean by civil war?
Yeah.
Oh, I think we're in one already. And what I mean by that is it's a fourth and fifth generational war, which is propaganda, information warfare, economic warfare. So we have had ground skirmishes. We've had Antifa fighting with Proud Boys. We had right-wing groups clashing with left-wing groups. We've had insurgency. There was a guy who showed up to an ICE facility with a ghost gun and some firebombs. There was a dude who went and executed a Trump supporter in the middle of the street in Portland. A lot of things like that.
There's a congressional baseball game that was shot up as well.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so that was a Bernie volunteer who did that. And Steve Scalise almost lost his life.
I could see like a corporate war, like the corporations versus everybody else, and that happening in the United States is like a battleground for it, unfortunately.
That's already happening.
But like a hot war, the corporations have like private military, but where would they locate their bases? They have their corporate headquarters they could use. They probably own a lot of land that they would use.
I don't.
But other than that, I don't see the American people going out.
Corporations are not ideological for the most part. They're being infiltrated by ideological individuals.
Klaus Schwab is the ideologue.
But he's something far beyond just a corporation. He's Davos Group.
He wants corporations to run the world.
I think we're living in a world where ideas are more powerful than bullets. And I think those ideas and that kind of form of manipulation is something that has been used already in a war that we don't even know exists right now that has hurt tremendously the populations of this world. And I think this guy is right. I think his assessment is fair. But I think it's going to hedge more on the prominence of social media. So if social media is as prominent and becomes more prominent in our lives, I do believe the likelihood of civil war is going to go up. If social media becomes less prominent, it's not going to be as prominent. That's what I personally believe, because when we look at big tech algorithms, when we look at the prominence of social media, you see hyper-polarization of people on the political spectrum going into their echo chambers more and more and more, and the algorithm regurgitates it, and I think deliberately pushes it, this is my own theory, towards a divide and conquer agenda that has people fighting each other rather than looking at the true source of their problems that's really creating it. That's my personal perspective and opinion.
But if we get rid of social media...
Now, I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm saying the prominence. So if social media becomes more prominent.
So look, our show is prominence of social media. That people choose to go to YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or wherever else to get content. They find channels like ours. We're not on TV. So certainly this is what big tech, the big machine, the establishment wants. They want to homogenize everything. They have slowly been removing people from YouTube. And if you search on YouTube for news, what are you going to get? If you typed in something like Germany, unvaxxed lockdown, you ain't going to get us. You're not going to get my channels, Timcast News, Timcast IRL, ain't going to happen. You're going to get CNN, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, etc., even though we know they lie. They would
But
be
we
propped
still
up.
have Joe Rogan as the number one show on Spotify, like which we just saw. There's an appetite. People can go find their shows that they want, and that's good
For now.
Well,
As far as the Civil War, though, just to chime in, like we hear Civil War, we think of 1861, right? We have, as Americans, it was the most pivotal moment in our history, maybe more so than even independence. It's ingrained in our fiber, in our history. We're not going to see that. I don't think that's, so we might have a civil war. It's not going to look like that. I like to think, I might have mentioned this to Lydia earlier, I like to think of it maybe as a Brexit, right? That we just, like we might say, this isn't working out. And, like trying to maybe rule, like from Washington, D.C., a bunch of corrupt politicians where our words are the law. And we're going to rule the whole nation, which is very diverse, by the way. We have different cultures, different people, different traditions. Trying to govern everybody under one umbrella, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense anymore. I think the framers would say, this isn't working. I think they'd look and say, what is the purpose of government? It's to protect life, liberty, and property. That government's really not doing that anymore.
I think some of them might say that.
Yeah, it got out of hand. The representatives, they used to represent, I don't know, a few thousand people, 30,000, and now, I don't know, 700,000? 750,000 people. One guy is supposed to represent. You can barely represent yourself effectively. That's your number one job. So I think democratic republicanism is dying. And we need a new form where you can't have republics. You can't have these people that get voted in and then get bribed. That's what over and over and over. And whether it's a new face or an old face, they're getting money from Exxon and all these crazy corporations, Alphabet,
Pfizer.
Yeah.
And it's like a point of weakness of vulnerability in the system. These bribes that keep happening.
It wouldn't matter, though, right, if the politicians didn't have the power they have. Like all those bribes, they happen because there's so much at stake, because they have so much power. If we remove the power from the politicians, that's much less of a problem. And we have a mechanism to do that. We have, if you look in recent history, it's not just Brexit. Other places have said, you know what, this isn't working. And I think for Americans, that's a really hard idea. I don't think we're close to that idea. But, at FE, our motto, anything peaceful, right? And if we just, like as Americans say, we had a good run, the marriage, it's not really working out. You go your way, we're going to go our way. And if people
It's not.
I'm not saying that's practical. I think it's very painful.
No,
I think it would be hard, but I think that approach makes sense.
So we've had the conversation about peaceful divorce or national divorce quite a bit, but I think a lot of people who are proponents of this don't understand that, like California, for instance, Southern California is completely dependent upon the Colorado River. So if we all start going our separate ways and California's blue and they break off, Colorado's going to be like, we're going to, you want our water, let's negotiate. We're no longer part of the same system, and it's going to change things. They could cut them off. They could start polluting, upstream. California might get mad. You've got states that think they have a right to the Great Lakes. Let's talk about, Pennsylvania, the fracking fields, the amount of energy they produce in Western Pennsylvania. Well, the surrounding states need that energy. All of a sudden they break off, and the trade, how is it going to function? What are the rules? What are the laws? Like we're seeing with Brexit. I'm not saying it's the bad outweighs the good. I'm just saying what I think might end up happening is you've got Eastern Oregon wanting to break away from Western Oregon. Western Oregon won't allow that. They're wealthy. They're powerful. That's the center of power. And the people in the East, they pay them. They're effectively the serfs in the fields. They're not going to let them go. So the question, I guess, is if we do see national divorce, do you think that the overwhelmingly dense, deep red areas within a blue state will just be like, guess we're going with the far left on this one? Or are they going to be like, no way? If the Republican, red state, conservative, independent, libertarian, whatever group is breaking away, we want to join them. Well, you're surrounded by blue states. You may be Southern Illinois, completely red, but too much blue all around you. What do you do? Well, fighting starts.
It would be messy. Like I brought up the American Civil War earlier. That was kind of clean, even though there's a lot of bloodshed, in the fact that you had one boundary, right? You had the Mason-Dixon line, and I know that there were some states that weren't necessarily of the south north of that, but that's not the point. Today we have different divides, and it's some of it's urban, rural, right? Like so this wouldn't be easy. It would be messy. And you bring up a lot of as far as trade, water rights, mineral rights, all of that. But it's preferable, I think, to either a real war, a real civil war, or living under a government that's increasingly tyrannical. And that's what I see.
But it precipitates war. So you have, upstate New York, a lot of which is more conservative, more libertarian, not interested in what the New York City is doing. And let's say people, the overwhelming majority of people in upstate New York are like, nah, you're New Jersey. I don't know what you're doing. So you're out, because it's urban versus rural. Do you think like New York is just going to be like, I guess we'll die? No, they're going to be like, you can't do this. Open the roads up. You can't ID us. We're New York. And then it's not instant. If there was some kind of, convention of states and then everyone said, okay, that's it, we're breaking up, and then we'll negotiate how this goes, Eastern Oregon is going to be like, no. And what are they going to do? Are they going to come in? If Eastern Oregon is faced with the possibility of the country breaking apart, they'll immediately be like, we're with them. And Oregon and Washington and these states are going to be like, nah, but then they're backed up by Idaho. What happens when the food isn't coming? What happens when California, which produces a large amount of food for this country, all of a sudden is under completely different rules? And then what happens if the overwhelmingly leftists in the government start seizing land and pulling off stupid BS?
Worst case scenario, we get invaded by an external force, and
China?
The history book writes it as that was the moment the U.S. was destroyed.
I think
and
that
it would
fear,
be dissipated.
You're not the first person that brought that up. I think that's an overblown fear. I think nothing would unite Americans more than an international force trying to, get in our backyard. As far as like an example like Oregon, the good thing is there are even, I'm not usually somebody that quotes international precedent, but we do have, right to the UN, people have a right to declare independence. And if people over there decide, this isn't working out, there are steps to take to do that. Like I said, I don't think we're there right now. I think Americans have to go, they're going to have to be pushed much further. But when I look at the long-term picture of things, and I've never talked about this publicly, it was just stuff you chew on in the shower or something. Like this isn't really working out. What's the off-ramp? Where is it?
Well, this is something that I was talking about last year when I first came on the show. One of the first things I brought up was peaceful divorce. We need a peaceful divorce, and we need more memes in the larger spectrum. If you remember the first episode, that's what I was kind of going on about. But we have to remember there's two factors here. One, the state is becoming more and more sociopathic. They don't only just want their pound of flesh, where they literally create ideas like civil asset forfeiture, which is insane, but they want to tax you, they want to regulate you, they want to control every aspect of your existence towards a crazy maniacal level. And throughout human history, communists have never peacefully allowed separation. They have wanted to control everything and every aspect of your existence, and it's sick and it's twisted and it totally destroys any form of progress. But there are instances, just like with the Amish, where people do come together and say, this is crazy, I don't want to be a part of this, and they are respected as their own individual entity, which I believe individuals and groups like the Free State Project are trying to make their own kind of Amish group in New Hampshire, and I think what they're doing is amazing. I think they have a lot of success stories, and I think it is possible on that small micro level, but I think what's really going to be likely is that economically, financially, socially, there's going to be a huge storm coming. And when that storm comes, people are going to come together and they're going to live together, and that's going to be their own individual groups, and they're going to be identified as their own power structures. I think that is way more likely. And there might be clashes between power structures, and that might be deemed a civil war, but I think that is more of a likely situation than one of the old kind of knowledge, the North versus the South, which is impractical. And if we look at historically other civil wars, it's not just territorial regions, it's people fighting over ideas. And I think that's going to happen on many levels when everything hits the fan.
And this is the real, I think the potential catalyst we have is, I don't know which side has a stronger moral stance. You have the left and wokeism, which is a non-theistic religion or a cult, whatever you want to call it. And these people are willing to burn down and murder. They've burned down buildings, 25 people dead in the George Floyd riots. And when Aaron Danielson is shot in the chest in Portland, they cheered for it on more than one occasion. So these people celebrate the death of their perceived enemies. Now, the right doesn't do that. They're not, and there's still a strong moral position, and that's abortion. So I wonder, what we saw in 1861 was a strong moral position that was a strong catalyst for the war, slavery. Abolitionists were like, we will storm in full speed to end this. With wokeism, they're going around saying white supremacy. They're doing rallies right now where they claim that white supremacy is defending itself with Kyle Rittenhouse and all that stuff. Then you also have right now the Supreme Court hearing the oral arguments on the Mississippi 15-week abortion ban, and a belief among many in the media and many leftists that come June 2022, abortion will be banned. That will ignite insanity among the left, and the right will absolutely stand by to defend it. With these trigger laws happening, with blue states then reinforcing, you're going to have a hard ideological divide between woke and unwoke. And that could be a potential catalyst, or at the very least, if we're talking about, Tinder being thrown into the fire and the flames slowly getting bigger, June 2020, if the Supreme Court does overturn Roe v. Wade, it'll be like someone just threw a whole drum of gasoline right on top of it. It doesn't mean it'll spark a war. It just means it's going to get hot.
Yeah, no, there will be a lot of fury and anger and gnashing of teeth. But I will say my prediction is I do think it will happen. I don't think it'll be. Now, this is a bold prediction. Oh, boy. I don't think it'll be as big of a deal as you think.
Civil War or Roe v. Wade?
Yeah, if they overturn Roe versus Wade, it'll be. We'll talk about it a lot. There'll be, like I said, gnashing of teeth. But we've been here for so long. I think it's going to be. It's going to make social media crazy. I don't think it's going to be like what we saw in 2020. And that's my hope. So
you think we're on the back end, we're heading down, now things are going to slow down?
And even, if you look across demographics, I think abortion's kind of a losing battle for Democrats. I think progressives hold to it religiously. But, they're gonna get really loud and angry about it, but they're not. The people that are going to get most loud and angry aren't the people that are going to go march in streets over it. Well, they'll march. Don't get me wrong. They'll march. But they're not the people that are going to light up cars and do that stuff.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.